I don't know if you can hear me. I hope you can hear me. Good to see you here. It is Thursday night, the 6th of April, I should say. I hope you're having a good day, everybody. We had a good day in the trial as far as progress here. Hopefully there is no lag with my lips versus the sync on the video. We did some fine tuning this morning and hopefully it's working out. But I appreciate you joining in to Courtroom Insider Day 4 of the Daybell trial. And as I mentioned, there is some progress. We're going to go through what happened today with jury selection. And we finally hit that magical number that was needed. And so things will really start progressing tomorrow. And then, of course, on Monday when opening statements begin. I've had multiple attorneys, even a few judges, contact me this week saying, Nate, it's opening statements, not opening arguments. And you know what's funny? I knew that. For some reason, I say opening arguments a lot on this broadcast, but I have been told it is opening statements and then closing arguments at the end of the trial. So we will have opening statements on Monday, and we could hear from our first witnesses come Monday. We don't know who they are. They haven't released them. A lot of police officers are in town. They might have the law enforcement go first. I'm not sure what's going to happen, but I want to talk about that today. I want to talk about Keith Morrison. He's going to be here on Courtroom Insider. We're going to talk about the case. He has been following it since the very beginning, and he's still following it. And I want to tell you a little bit of behind-the-scenes stuff with Dateline and Keith. Great crew and great person to work with. And I've got to explain something that I said earlier today that apparently got a lot of you really worked up. My fault concerning the Woodcocks and their marital status. So I want to explain that. But before we do that, I just want to thank you for being here. Please tell me where you're at, where you're commenting, and what questions you have, because we're going to get to questions. It seems that a lot of you have a lot of questions about this, and I can't thank you enough for following along. There's a lot of good reporters here on the scene, and it's been great to be here. Okay, here's what we can expect tonight. As I said, jury selection day 4. We have the final day of jury selection. We have a ruling on the witnesses concerning the Woodcocks, the witnesses in the case / victims, family victims, what the judge said, and what we can expect going forward. We also have the Woodcocks responding. I just barely got off the phone with Larry and Kay, mainly Larry. We had a good talk. They're in town. I want to tell you what happened today, as I mentioned. What's next in the case? We have Keith Morrison, and we have your questions. Now, before I get to that, do you remember yesterday I showed you a video of 2 geese that woke me up here at the hotel? This happened yesterday morning, and I played you the video. It was kind of funny. I didn't know what was happening with the noises outside. They were back again today. But one of you, actually a few of you, I should say, probably 2 or 3, wrote and said, Nate, you know Tammy Daybell loved animals and loved birds. And maybe those geese are a sign from her. Or maybe that's JJ and Tylee, keeping watch over the proceedings or whatever. And I thought that's a very nice sentiment. I got that late last night. I woke up this morning. I went down to the hotel gym again, got on the treadmill and look out the window. And what do I see? 2 ducks. And I immediately thought of Tammy. On her gravestone, there's ducks, the mama duck and the 5 little ducks behind her kids. And so, I thought that was interesting timing. I'm not big into superstitious stuff, and I believe that whoever wants to read into whatever they want can. But there you go. 2 days in a row, there's been the geese first and now the ducks. So I wanted to share that with you today before we get going and let you know that that's what's happening here. Okay, the Woodcocks. Now, before I get to that, the judge ruled, Judge Boyce issued his ruling this morning. The issue was that witnesses in trials are not allowed to sit through other witnesses in trials because their testimony could be tainted. There could be issues that come up. If I go in and I have my version of a story, but yet my wife takes the stand, if we both witnessed a car crash and I hear her say things, I could be influenced by that. And so courts don't allow witnesses to stand in or to sit in a courtroom while things are happening in a trial. There are exemptions, though, including immediate family members in the state of Idaho. especially in murder cases. And so the issue was, are Larry and Kay Woodcock considered witnesses? Considered victims? They are considered witnesses. They've both been on the witness list, but are they considered victims, immediate family member victims? And that was the issue that was taken up last week at kind of a last minute hearing that was called here in Ada County. So the defense said no, they shouldn't be, because JJ was adopted by Lori and Charles, and Kay was not the biological mother tied in, and because of that, biological grandmother, and because of that, she shouldn't be in there. Of course, the prosecution said absolutely they should be in there. They are very much victims. They are very much family members, and they deserve to be in there. So we've been waiting a week now for this verdict, or this ruling, to come down from Judge Boyce, and it hit this morning around 8:30. And what he said is that that each of the, I'm summarizing here, it's 9 pages, but basically he said that each of the deceased can have somebody represent them, an immediate family member, on their behalf. Colby Ryan, who's also on the witness list, can be the representative for JJ and Tylee. And Summer Shiflett could be the representative because he's their brother. He's their biological brother, so he can be in there. Summer Shiflett can be the representative for Tylee because Tylee's aunt, or Tylee's mom, is the defendant and her dad is dead. She can have someone there as her representative, and that person is Summer, and Summer's on the witness list, so she can do that. We don't know if Summer will be here for the trial, but if she's called as a witness, she'll obviously come. So then Kay Woodcock is JJ's representative because, again, JJ's dad is dead. His mom is the defendant. And the judge said that because of that, he deserves to have someone represent him. So that's Kay. All 3 of those are on the witness list. All 3 of those are there. And this is all according to Judge Boyce's ruling. But who wasn't on there was Larry Woodcock. And I'm going to read you actually what the ruling says. I did a live this morning and read you exactly what the judge said. But what he said is that because Larry Woodcock is not there representing someone, is not a representative for someone, that he really can't be in there during other witness testimony. He can be in there when he's not, after he's taken the stand, he can be in there. And he can be in there when they are talking about things that aren't with somebody not on the witness stand. So this is exactly what the judge said. Finally, Larry Woodcock does not meet the legal definition of, quote, immediate family member in relation to any of the victims listed by the state. The state has included Larry Woodcock on the list of witnesses expected to testify. Let me make this big so you can read it. Expected to testify. As such, he is subject to the exclusionary rule of Idaho Rule 615. This means Larry Woodcock is precluded from observing trial testimony prior to the testimony he offers at trial. He may, however, observe all proceedings where testimony is not being offered, and upon the completion of his testimony, he would be permitted to observe the remainder of the trial. The state has the means to order its testifying witnesses however it see fits. Should the state wish to call Larry Woodcock early in its case in chief, that is entirely the prerogative of the state. So, the state could call Larry first. The state could wait. Maybe the state takes him off the witness list. Maybe Larry, you might recall that early on they had witnesses for the chief case, and then when there was the death penalty portion, there was witnesses for the latter portion where they discussed the sentence. Maybe he was part of that. I don't know how that's all going to work out, but I can tell you that I just spoke with Larry, and I want to tell you what he said. But before I get to that, when I was live this morning, I pulled up another document that Jim Archibald filed. I don't have it here, but he was clarifying the family relationships to everybody. And in that document, he mentioned that Larry and Kay Woodcock are divorced. And I said that here on the live without giving any context. And then I went about my live video. And by the time I got off, our newsroom in Idaho Falls was calling me saying, "What did you say?" Because the phone's ringing off the hooks about the Woodcocks being divorced. Are the Woodcocks divorced? What happened? And many of you messaged me about this thing. So I got to tell you, the Woodcocks and I have been in touch since the beginning of this case. I speak to them a lot. I want to show you a picture of when we first. This isn't when we first met, but this is when we were first newly acquainted with each other in New York City at the Dr. Oz show in the dressing room. This was back in 2020, before COVID, before everything. So the Woodcocks, I consider them friends. I hope they would consider me a friend. They were divorced back in years and years and years ago. They got married. They got divorced. They have since remarried. They reconciled. They're back together again. They have been by each other's side this entire case from the beginning. I mean, they've traveled together. They've shared hotel rooms together. They've been together. So I should have added that context this morning when I said the Woodcocks are divorced. And the reason that Jim Archibald, I believe, listed that in the document was to kind of set it straight to the court as far as who's related to who and what rights they all have and are they victims or not. All right? So there you go. Woodcocks are married. They are married. They're not divorced. They were divorced. They're not divorced. Got that? Okay. Now, I got off the phone with Larry a few minutes ago, and I said, "How are you feeling?" And he said I could share this. He said that he had a really restless day yesterday. Him and Kay both. They're waiting for the ruling from the judge. Are they going to be able to sit in the trial? They had a really restless day. They didn't sleep well. Tossed and turned, and Larry said that he finally last night, his words, he turned to the person who could give him some peace. And for an hour he prayed and asked for peace and asked for reassurance and asked for guidance and love and peace. And he said it came. He said it came to him. And this morning he woke up before the decision was handed down, and he said, "I'm going to take whatever comes and I'm going to live with it, and I'm going to be content with it." And then he learned that his wife, Kay, can go into the hearing, the trial. He cannot for now, but maybe things will work out so that he can. And he said he's just going to put his best foot forward and move forward. He had no animosity on the phone. We were joking, we were laughing, we were talking. He did an interview with Justin Lum today from Fox 10 in Phoenix. And I don't know if Justin's posted that yet, but you can go check that out. And so that's where Larry stands today. They asked that they send their appreciation and love and support to all of you who have been praying for them and wishing them well. And they're ready to go. They're ready to go. They've been waiting for this for a while, 3.5 years, 4 years for them almost. And they're ready to go. They're here in Boise. They have been keeping a low profile, conserving their energy. So that's where we stand with Larry and Kay. I hope that makes sense, and I hope that they appreciate all of you. All right, let's get to this courtroom sketches today. This is Lori. This was actually one from late yesterday that I didn't get to share with you, but this is the courtroom sketch from yesterday, and we have the courtroom sketch from today. They rearranged the tables in there so that both the defense and the prosecution were sitting right in front of the judge. I should say I think they rearranged the photos because we haven't been in that room and we're just seeing camera angles. So, but it looked like it was positioned differently today. We have this one of the defense. I don't think Rachel Smith is giving a peace sign. I think she's holding up a juror card or something. And there's Lindsay Blake there in the middle and Rob Wood on the end. And then we have the defense team. We have Lori and Jim and John Thomas. So that's the images from today. All right, next we've got what's next. We need 42 jurors. We needed 42 potential jurors. We have 45. We finally hit that number. Today, the jury process did not begin until later in the day, 1:30, because there was some administrative stuff this morning. And so we were kind of waiting around to see what was going to happen. And 1:30 we go in. They needed 3. We ended the day yesterday with 39, so we needed 3 today. We got to 42 around probably 4:45-ish, 5-ish. And the judge said, I want to try to get several more just in case they show up and they're sick or whatever tomorrow. So they finally got there at 45. At 5:30, the judge cut it off. We got to 45. So what happens? All of those 45 report back to the courtroom tomorrow at 9. That's when preemptory challenges begin. And the goal is they got to get that 45 down to 18. There's going to be 12 jurors and 6 alternates. The judge will determine who's who. After that happens, the jurors will be sworn in. That could happen tomorrow or it could happen Monday morning. But after that, let's say they get down to the 18 tomorrow. There's the 12 and the 6. The judge swears them in tomorrow. Court is dismissed for the day. Everybody goes home for the weekend. Monday morning, 8:30, opening statements. Prosecution has their opening statement. I don't know how long that'll take. Could take all day. I doubt it. Might take a few hours. The defense could give an opening statement. They could waive and wait. And then the witnesses start to be called. That quick. It's going to happen. And these jurors will determine for the next 7 or 8 weeks exactly how they're going to take it all in. It was interesting today. A lot of the questioning with the jurors was, again, about media consumption, if they'd heard of the Netflix program or some of the other shows that are on TV, and many had not. In fact, by the time they got to us, I don't think we heard anyone that said yes, they had. I think they kind of weeded those out in the beginning. But there were people that said they may have seen a newscast, a local newscast or something on social media. There was one guy today who studied theology. And so, of course, religion is a big part of this case. And they asked a bit more about him. So we have the number we've been waiting for. Jury selection took 4 days. I won't say 4 full days, probably 3.5 full days. Although if you consider the hours, I mean, there were some days there where it went pretty long. So the jurors are there, and hopefully we will have a jury tomorrow. Tomorrow we should have a jury, and then we should get going. Will there be any days off? No. From everything I've understood, the only scheduled day off in this trial is Memorial Day, other than weekends. And hopefully this trial is over by Memorial Day. But if it's not, everyone will get Memorial Day off, and then there will be it'll continue on. But that's kind of how it is. And the trial will run every day, 8:30 to 3:30. So things will be wrapped up at 3:30. There could be days where it goes a little longer, maybe to 4:30. But I think the judge is going to try to keep it on schedule and keep it going. All right, I hope you're sending in your questions because we're going to go through them all. And now I want to get to Keith Morrison, Dateline NBC correspondent. He's been a journalist, I believe, 40, 50 years. He started off in Canada, radio, I believe. And then he switched over to television. He was a correspondent in Canada. He anchored a morning show in Canada. And then he moved to the States, and NBC picked him up. And he's been with Dateline for a lot of years. Dateline used to do, it was more like a magazine type show where they do like consumer reports and things like that. And then, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, they switched to crime stories. And Keith has told me in the past, I wasn't really sure that I was going to like those. You know, I didn't know if I'd like them and the crime stories, but he says he's really enjoyed them because he gets to meet so many of the victims. This is me and Keith with my typical selfie shooting up my nostrils. My wife always tells me that. Back in 2020, there's Eric. You guys remember Eric. He interned with us and worked with me at East Idaho News. This is the very first Dateline in February of 2020, before we knew where JJ and Tylee were, before, I don't think Lori had been arrested just yet. No, she hadn't. She hadn't, because I remember that the Dateline aired on Valentine's Day. At least I'm pretty sure she hadn't. I could be wrong. But anyway, this is fresh in the case. We did not know a lot. We other than, you know, there were 2 people in Hawaii and there were missing kids. And Keith came to Idaho and he was interested in this story, you know, from the beginning. And his crew, Shane Bishop is his producer, who Eric and I worked with, who's a great producer. He's done a lot of other stories you've seen with that. He's done all of the Datelines with Keith on this particular story, the Daybell case. And so why don't we bring Keith in here? Stand by for Keith Morrison. Well, I appreciate you doing this. I just barely walked over from the courthouse. They have finally reached the pool of 42.
They got there, huh?
They got
Good.
there. Then they're going to strike it down to 18 tomorrow, and opening arguments begin Monday. 3 years ago, when we were in Hawaii, did you ever think we would end up here 3.5 years later?
I didn't think it would take quite 3.5 years, frankly, Nate, but apparently it does. The wheel grinds slow, and boy, I see from your posts it continues to grind pretty slow. The whole question of this long dissertation on whether or not certain people would be allowed to testify or not. I'm sure a lot of disappointment for JJ's grandparents.
Yeah. They, of course, Kay gets to be in the courtroom, and Larry can go in the courtroom, but just not for other testimony or once he's testified. So maybe they'll move him to the top of the list or something.
Hard to know. I guess there are strategies involved on both sides, I'm sure.
Yeah. I want to go back when you first heard about this case. What made it so interesting to you back in December of 2019?
Well, because you got a whiff of what may have actually happened here. It seemed too bizarre to be true, and yet all the indications were it was. And the more we found out, the more bizarre it became. So it was like a string that you could not help but follow. And indeed, it did get stranger and stranger. There are still so many elements of this story that we have not had a chance to cover simply because there's so much of it,
Yeah, this story does not have an elevator 10-second pitch when somebody asks about it.
It does not. No, indeed.
So it's taken you and I, but you to Hawaii, Idaho, Utah, Arizona, all sorts of states, all sorts of characters. Is there anything about it that sticks out to you as you've been to all these places and met with law enforcement and learned stuff that as you're putting this all together?
Along the way, there have been just a lot of shocking things that we have discovered. And I think probably the thing that sticks to me most of all, though, is that helicopter ride you and your folks took on the day that the police finally raided the house, found the graves in the backyard. It's kind of an unforgettable moment.
Yeah, it was unforgettable. I honestly wasn't expecting that there would be bodies buried in that yard. I thought, oh, they're going to see some stuff or look for evidence, but there was the key that
They were.
answered the question. Do you also remember when you came out to Idaho and we went to that storage unit?
Yes, indeed. Yeah, that was something. And then finding that video, the pat on the bum kind of lives in the memory as well.
Yeah, the surveillance footage that showed Lori visiting with Chad, we assume Chad, and him touching her rear end. I remember when the owner of that storage unit opened up the garage, I think you said it was eerie to see all of the belongings of those kids who at that time we didn't know where they were.
Right. And the possibility existed that they were alive, but I certainly didn't think so. And to see this stuff piled up in that storage room, it was just so sad. It was really a moment of great pathos.
Yeah. So, any idea? I know you don't know this. No one really knows, but any idea how this ends? We have Lori, of course, who's starting a trial, who has insisted she go to trial and wants to plow through this. Then you have Chad, who's waived his trial. I mean, do you see maybe him turning on her or her on him? How do you foresee it?
You could just imagine what the lawyers are going over in their minds. And if I were Chad's lawyer, I'd be thinking, well, he's going to have to testify against Lori. And if you're Lori, you're going to blame Chad for the whole thing, and the trial will help you do that. So that's going to be the interesting thing to observe. How are they going to spread the blame for these terrible events, or even are they going to admit that there were terrible events to blame people for? I don't know. The question will just hangs out there. Is the delusion still something that they're in the middle of or not?
Yeah. You think Lori will take the stand?
With a lot of people, you get a pretty clear indication. whether there's a narcissistic tendency in the personality, and there does seem to be in Lori, but I somehow I doubt it.
Yeah. I will say that Dateline has been a popular topic of conversation with the judge and the jurors over the past few days, Keith. He has asked, so they completed these questionnaires. Around 2,000 people sent in these questionnaires. They narrowed it down. They put them in pools of 15. They're calling them in. And then when they do individual questioning, the judge asked each and every one, among all the questions, have you seen the Dateline about this story?
Which one? Which
Yeah, I
date?
know. Which 9 hours or 10 hours? And then you did the podcast, which hit #1 for a long time on the charts. Why are people so interested in this case?
Well, it contains all the elements of a case that fascinates people. There's there are the unbelievable behaviors, of course, but also the unbelievable beliefs and the strange lead up to it. And Chad obviously plays the supporting role in this drama, and yet it's the writing that he contributed to it that seems to be at the heart of the odd beliefs, the idea that you can cross back and forth across the threshold between life and death, and therefore it's okay to be offing people right, left, and center. So who knows who first decided to take the actions? There are still some questions we don't have the answers to, and I think that that's part of the fascination here.
Sure.
In addition to which, characters along the way, and I don't want to malign anybody, but some very strange things have happened involving people who are associated with Lori and Chad.
Yeah. Makes you wonder what would happen if Alex Cox were still alive, her brother.
Right. It certainly does. And I'm sure that a lot of blame will be thrown in his direction by both parties.
Well, in addition to keeping up with all of this story, this case, you also have.
And I've tuned into your broadcast as often as I can.
Well, I appreciate that. I want to talk about, though, the podcast, The Girl in the Blue Mustang, changing topics here a little bit. All the episodes will be available starting next Tuesday, but you can get all of them up till now, or most of them at least. What's this story about?
This is a story I started covering over 20 years ago. Well, actually, that's not exactly right. We started picking up the story about 15 years ago, but the case occurred back at the turn of the century, very beginning of the year 2000, where a young woman who'd been given a brand new shiny blue Mustang as a graduation / Christmas gift had gone with a friend of hers to take part in a music video in downtown LA, and then drove back to the high desert where they both lived, and where Michelle O'Keefe, the victim in this story, had stored her Mustang until they got back from the shoot. She got into the car, and shortly thereafter, she was dead. She was shot by somebody. And the only person who the police believed was around was the security guard, who supposed to be an unarmed security guard. But the mystery evolves from there, and it's one that has preoccupied me off and on for many years now. And some of the events that have taken place and continue to take place, because it's not over yet, are truly bizarre. The strangest things you ever heard. But strange things happen in law and justice all the time.
Yeah, you know that better than anybody. And you have sure spent a lot of time in Idaho with the University of Idaho murders, Moscow.
Yes.
I imagine.
Yes, well, program on that coming up fairly soon, I think.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, Keith, I got to say to all of you watching that Keith is one of the nicest guys. There's this stigma among local reporters that the national guys swoop in and they're arrogant and cocky.
That's us for sure.
Well, let me tell you, a few years ago, before all the Daybell stuff broke, Keith was in Idaho Falls doing a story on the Angie Dodge murder. And you probably don't remember this, Keith, because I found.
Oh, sure.
I found your email address somewhere. I didn't even know if it was like your real one. I sent you an email and said, hey, I'd love to chat with you about why you're in town. And Keith wrote back and said, sure, when do you want to do it? And I said, oh my gosh, Keith Morrison this afternoon. And I'm expecting him to come with a team of 10 people and have a driver. And you
Uh,
pulled up all by yourself and came in.
it's a lot of fun. Your group are a bunch of very nice people.
Well, thank you.
You,
And I'm sorry, what was that, Keith?
I said, and you at the head of it.
Oh, well, thank you. And then one more thing. When my daughter, Emmy, 7 questions with Emmy,
Yes.
you were her first, she tells me all the time. And just today she said, please tell Keith hi. Keith was the first famous person to say yes to her. And because he said yes, she was with Mary J. Blige and Drew Barrymore just a few days ago, Keith.
She is an amazing young woman, and it's an honor to have been her first.
Well, I just
Yes.
thank you for being so cordial and real, and for coming on here. Of course, we'll stay on top of all of the updates from this case for 7 more weeks, and maybe if it gets huge enough, or there's some big bombshell, we might see you out here.
Yeah, are you kidding? Of course, if something happens, we're there. Yeah.
All right.
Well, it's going to happen. The question, one of the issues is this is not a televised trial, as you know, which presents a bit of a roadblock for us, but we shall see. We're watching carefully, and if we can swoop in at some point and do another program, I'm sure we will.
Well, you might get mobbed at the courthouse like that first time.
No.
Keith, thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate this. I just mentioned off the cuff the other night when I was doing this, someone said, is Keith Morrison in Idaho? And I said, no, not right now, but maybe I can talk to him. And all the comments, yes, Keith. So,
well, say hello to everybody from me.
I will. All right, there you go. Straight from Keith. He says hi. Thank you so much, Keith. He really is nice. When Keith first came to the very first Lori Vallow hearing, she had been sent back to Idaho from Hawaii. He showed up at the Madison County Courthouse. Oh my goodness, he was mobbed. They had to get him out of there. It was like a rock star showing up. But he truly is the nicest guy. And so thank you for suggesting him as a guest. One of you just said, is Keith Morrison going to be there? And sure enough, I said, I don't know, but should we ask him? Who else do you want to see? Should I reach out to anybody else and have him come on the show? Anyway, we're going to get to your questions here. I know many are coming in, but before we do that, every night we want to honor one of the victims here, JJ, Tylee, Tammy, Charles. I know Charles isn't connected to this particular case in Idaho, but he is considered a victim, and so we're going to talk about him here. This is a photo I got the other night of Charles. I hadn't seen this picture before, and many of you are sending me pictures and stories about JJ and Tylee and Tammy and Charles, and I love it. So if you know them, please continue to send me those stories. I'm going to read a little blurb that somebody sent me about this picture and about Charles. She said, Charles was a Dallas Cowboys fan. One holiday, he got a New Orleans Saints shirt. His facial expression cracks me up. It looks like, is that the Saints shirt he's wearing? My son found this picture. JJ was an infant in the photo. I do believe Lori was holding him. Fond memories that night. So that may be Lori holding JJ there in the background, and there's Charles on that Christmas night. It's so hard not to be sad, but what a memorable night that was. This person sends me. So there's Charles Vallow, and we think about him, we remember him, we think about JJ as well, and Tylee. I want to get to your questions here before we go. Just a reminder, you can follow me here on my reporter page, my Twitter, my Instagram, and our East Idaho News YouTube. We have posted the audio from day number 2 of the jury selection on YouTube. It's about 6.5 hours long. We also have day 1 and we have day 2. So we still need days 3 and 4 to get caught up. Hopefully when the trial gets going, we'll have the audio a little quicker. It's the same questions in the most part for all of the jurors, potential jurors. But if you're interested in it, it's kind of interesting to go listen to and hear how the different attorneys have their different tactics and how they question and try to whittle down the jury. But you can do that. My Instagram's more personal type stuff, family and whatnot. I don't do a lot of work stuff on there. And on Twitter, I post constant updates from the hearings as we go, and I will continue to do that. A quick note: I'm not going to be here tomorrow night at 7:30 because I'm going to go home for the weekend and be with my family. But Sunday night, day before the trial, 7:30, we're going to be right back here live, giving you a preview of what's expected to happen if we should know. Working on having a guest or two with us that night that you can listen to as we head into the trial. And then first thing Monday, we're at it. And I'll be here every night next week, breaking down what happens at the trial and what happens on Monday as well. Okay, here we go. I want to go through your questions. Please keep posting them wherever you can. Vicky asks, in some jurisdictions, the alternates are released once the deliberations begin. In others, they have to cool their heels alone in an assembly room. What's the rule in Idaho? I don't know. If you're an attorney or an assistant and let me know. That's an interesting question. If the alternates have to actually sit through all of the deliberations. It seems to me that there was a trial recently where the last day, the Murdoch trial, wasn't a juror dismissed the last day when they went on that trip out to the farm? I think. I don't know. I'll try to find that out for you, Vicky, if all the alternates have to stay till the end or if they're able to go home once the deliberations start. Kathy, can you explain the biological connection between JJ and his grandparents? Yes, I can. But I'm going to need my story that I wrote because I want to be sure I get it right. JJ was born to Kay's son. Kay's son gave him up for adoption, and Larry and Kay took care of him for about a year. Then Lori and Charles adopted JJ. So, Kay is JJ's paternal grandma and JJ's aunt. Make sense? Larry is Kay's husband. That's how it works. Where are the kids' bodies? Will they be released after for burial? That's from Jody. The kids' bodies are being held in a freezer. I hate to use that term, but it is a freezer in Madison County. At least last when I checked. They may have transported them over to Ada County for the trial for evidence. I don't know if that would be the case, but they were last held in Madison, and we're told that yes, they needed to preserve the bodies until after the trial. Now, I don't know if they'll be released after Lori's trial because you still have Chad's trial coming up, but I would imagine once both of those trials are done, the remains will finally be released, and I believe JJ will likely go to his Larry and Kay, and that Tylee will go probably to Colby if the courts get involved. Yesterday, we spoke about releasing evidence after the trial. Will the judge seal it until after Chad's trial? For this, I wish they had been tried together. Well, I would imagine that a lot of the evidence, if it's going to be in both trials, it probably won't be released after Lori's trials. We will have seen it if you're there and known what it is, and we'll report on it. But as far as images and audio recordings and video recordings, if it doesn't pertain to Chad's trial, yes, it should be released. If it does, they're probably going to hold on to it and not release it. Bobby, what are Chad's children's take on this? Do you think they'll be called to testify? I don't know what their take is. I know what their take was about a year and a half ago when they went on TV and said that they were standing behind their father. I have not seen them here at the trial. I understand they're not coming, and I don't think they'll be called to testify in this trial. They might in their father's. I mean, they could here, but who knows? Do you know if Lori ever visited Tammy and Chad's house? Did she ever meet Tammy? I don't know, but from what I have heard from those close to Tammy, they don't think that they ever met. What bombshells do you think will happen? Oh, Connie, I wish I knew. I tell you, or I might tell you. No, I would. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I I've been told that there's more though, that there's more information out there. There have been, it seems like all along this case, there's been big developments. There was the trip to Hawaii where we saw Chad and Lori. A few weeks later, we went to that storage unit. We saw all the stuff that was left behind. Then we got in the helicopter. We flew over their house. We saw the bodies. I mean, it was like these big moments. Then the police in Arizona did a big data dump, and it was 30 gigs of information, surveillance photos and videos. And then the police body camera footage was released from Arizona of Charles saying that his wife needed help. I mean, it seems like there's been these big drops, boom, 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 boom. And you think, what more is there out there? And there will be more. And all of Keith a minute ago was talking about these kind of loose ends or whatever. They will all be tied up together. So hopefully in 8 weeks when we talk, we can say, oh man, it might not make sense, but maybe we'll be able to figure a few more things out. Did officers interview all of the neighbors? Certainly strange things were going on. That's from Janet. Janet, I don't know which neighbors you mean. If it was the neighbors in Hawaii or Idaho. I do know that neighbors have been spoken with, and I do know that some of the doorbell footage that we've shared was taken by police, and it might be evidence here at the trial. I'm not really sure. Okay, why does Chad's attorney have a lien on his house? Well, Chad's got to pay for that attorney. John Pryor is not publicly appointed. Lori's attorneys are publicly appointed. Her first attorney was not, Mark Means, so she paid him somehow, and then he was removed from the case. And John Thomas and Jim Archibald are both public defenders. So if you live in Idaho, if you live in Fremont or Madison County, you're paying for them. Chad has had a private attorney all along, John Pryor. And so he has to pay for that attorney. And Pryor probably said, you don't have a job, you're in jail. So you need to give me the lien on you need to give me your house. Now, John Pryor is not living there. Chad's family, from what we understand, is still living there. And they might pay him rent or something. But that is why he has the lien on the house. What would happen if Chad decided to waive his trial? Well, he can't. The only way he can waive his trial is if he pleads guilty. If he doesn't plead guilty or enter into some sort of plea agreement with the prosecutors, he's going to have a trial. Now, what he did was he waived his right to a speedy trial. That's why it's not happening now. So he waived his right that you have to be tried within 180 days of being arraigned. So he gave that up and said, I gotta, give me more time. So that's what happens. He can't waive it. He'll face the jury one day, or he'll face a plea agreement, and that'll be settled. Can you have Nancy Grace on your program? Well, I don't know. What do you all think? You want me to ask Nancy to come on here? We can see what we can do. I know she's been following the case too. We got any other questions? Man, we have a lot. I wish that I could get through them all. Those have dropped off in a state. Okay. I think we got through some of the, what bombshells do you think will happen? I talked about how long will it take to get the recordings so we can listen to them. Christy, we have the recordings from day 1 and 2. Now, the reason I'm told is that there were some delays is that the microphones were a little too good and picked up stuff that they shouldn't have picked up as far as like whisperings and stuff. So they had to go through and pull that sound out. Plus they went into a lot of private questioning of jurors about their like personal lives and stuff. So they had to go pull that out too. So once the trial actually gets going, I'm hoping we'll get that audio day of or by the next day. And that's what we'll do every night. I'll play you some of the clips and the highlights from whatever happened that particular day and witness testimony. So Monday, hopefully I can play you the opening argument from what Rob Wood said and Lindsay Blake and Rachel Smith. And if Lori's team decided to say anything too, and maybe the first witness or two. So that is the goal, to get them as soon as we can. Once we get the audio, we put it right on East Idaho News and right on our YouTube channel, and you can go listen to that. Okay, where's the young man that was working with you when you did Dateline? That's Eric Grossarth. Eric left news, and he now works for the city of Idaho Falls. He is the PIO. That's the Public Information Officer. So we actually call him now if we have a question about the city of Idaho Falls. Oddly enough, though, Eric was in Boise today. Before he took a picture by our news car and said, "Hey, I'm here." I'm like, "Oh, you're here for the jury selection?" He wasn't. He was here to just see what was going on. All right, everybody. I think that's a wrap for tonight. Is Chad Daybell writing a new novel? I don't know. He might be writing a book. I can tell you that Lori takes a lot of notes from what we've seen. So you said that they have 45. How do you get that to 18 if each side only gets 12 strikes? Good question, Dawson. So they have 45, but they only need 42. So what the judge did, they got 45. They're calling all these 45 back. And if 3 of them, like, say, I can't, I'm sick, or something major came up, then what they really need is 42 bodies there tomorrow to get started. If they have 3 extra, they might just kind of hang out, I guess, till they get down to the 18. So 42 was the magic number, but they went over to 45 just to be safe. All right, everybody. I really appreciate you watching. And Nate, was a toxology report ran on Alex, Lori's brother. From everything we understand, they did an autopsy on Alex. They did all sorts of testing. It took months, and they released all of that. And it said that he died of that heart issue. And we talked to experts that said you can't, however he died, I forget the specifics. We have a story if you go to East Idaho News, but whatever the specifics were, you can't cause that in yourself. Like, you could cause yourself maybe to die in a certain way, but however he stopped his heart, it wouldn't be there. So that I don't know if we'll ever know more about Alex's situation or not. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Again, comment below. Let me know where you're watching from. No show tomorrow. If there's breaking news, though, for sure I'll come on if there's any sort of development over the weekend. I wish you all a great weekend. Happy Easter if you're celebrating. I'm going to get to go see my family. We're going to see the Mario movie. My little boy, who's 4, loves Mario, and my other son too. And he has been counting down the days. He wanted to go today. I guess it comes out, but because I'm here, we bought the tickets for Saturday. Anyway, we're going to go see Mario. I hope you have a great weekend. Join me back here Sunday night, 7:30. We'll break it all down again as we get ready for trial. Thanks so much for watching.